Good afternoon. Am I audible? We'll wait for 3-4 minutes before we start. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you very much for registering to this webinar. We'll spend an hour after the presentation for about 40-45 minutes. We will have a question and answer session. The title is Economic Realities of Lockdown and the Afterlife. I assume that everyone is familiar with the phrase afterlife. That's a life after our earthly life, the life after the lockdown. Before I start, I have a few formalities and protocol to complete. Let me introduce myself. My name is Venkitachalam. I'm a chartered accountant and a company secretary. And today I'm speaking to you as the chairman of Bizsolindia Services Private Limited. This is a company started some 20 years back with 4 professionals. Today we have about 40 plus professionals working in the company. We are the company who specializes in all commercial activities, providing end-to-end solutions, except perhaps issues related to marriage counseling and divorce counseling. Today, after the lockdown, perhaps if we had decided to undertake a divorce counseling, we would have had more clients and more business. Be that as it may, let me start with my presentation because there is one of the occupational hazards of doing a digital meeting is that it becomes very impersonal. It sounds impersonal. I can't see you. You can see me. I can't see you. This is the first of its kind I'm doing, though I have participated in the Zoom meetings. So to that extent, I'm feeling very uncomfortable that I can't meet my audience. Again, be that as may, let me take you to the next point. See, this is a Bizsol webinar series we have organized on the lockdown. It has got, I don't have to tell you that, this lockdown has profound consequences on our lives, our economy, our country, and our culture. We are organizing a series of webinars, out of which some of them in the first series is today's is the first one, the economic realities of the lockdown, and then what is going to happen once we go back to our workplaces. Is it going to be the same or is it going to look different? Then tomorrow we're going to have a session on survival strategies for MSMEs because they are likely to be the ones who are most affected among the industries. Then comes the payment of wages during the period of lockdown is a thorny issue which has thrown up more questions than answers. Then the implications of force majeure clause in various contracts. There is one clause which we used to skip over for the simple reason that we don't understand this Italian word modified by the French. So that will be the subsequent one. And then the next one will be the risk mitigation strategies in financing and Forex. There'll be a lot of people who will be looking for finances to tide over the difficult situation immediately after the lockdown is lifted. And in the first series, the last one being compliance requirements under the direct and indirect taxes. This will take care of the immediate requirements of the industry. Now, my job is to give an overview of what is in store for us in our next life. I chose the word afterlife for the simple reason that what had happened is so profound and it's almost a kind of a death of an era. It's not just in India, but across the world, which has no historical precedence. Now, that is the reason which I had chosen to give the word afterlife. And now, let me admit one thing. There's no difference between me and an astrologer who is sitting on the roadside. Both of us look at the future and both of us predict what's going to happen with limited knowledge. Both of us wish for one thing, that crystal ball. If I had a crystal ball which would tell me what is in store for me, or what is in store for the industry and the economy when we go back to our workplaces, provided, of course, those workplaces to exist when we go back or when we wish to go back. The only difference between the astrologer and me is that whatever I get to see through the prism or the crystal, I have taken my previous avatars in industry and other related activities, and whatever observations I personally have validated them. I have been a farmer. I mean, not a farmer for income tax purposes, a genuine farmer who had a farm close to my residence where I used to do farming myself personally. The lesson I learned there is that farming is a very profitable business, except for the farmer. Everybody makes money in the name of the farmer, the fertilizer fellow, the mandiwala, the transporter fellow, the uh, carton manufacturers, what have you, the whole system, they all live off the farmer. That's one lesson I learned. I've been running a hospital. I've seen poverty at close quarters, not being able to take care of the healthcare needs of the families. As an executive director of a 100-bed hospital nearby, I have run a small-scale unit manufacturing rubberized square mattresses, supplying to companies like Godrej, Kurlon, Dunlop, and also selling some myself as a small-scale unit. And before that, the substantive part of my career was in a company called VIP Industries, the luggage company, where I was on the board of the company for about 9 years and was the chief executive officer during some of the difficult times. So I can, even though I may sound a little immodest, I can say with some amount of authority that I have seen the industrial world from all angles. Large scale, small scale, personally, entrepreneur, service sector. And finally, now I have come home to a company which we started in 1997, this Bizsolindia. That's my company. And now, there are a few things, caveats, which I want to tell you before I proceed. Whatever recommendations I make, whatever observations I do, whatever solutions I may put forward, some may fit some may not fit some. One size does not fit all. What I say for a small scale unit may not be relevant for a large scale unit. And what I say for a man with the limited resources in terms of money may not be the same with a man who is gasping for a breath when it comes to wanting to fetch some money and capital. Okay, so this caveat is important. Okay, you can always quote back to me, but I can always give you a logic as to why what I said was what I meant. Yeah. Now, 25th of March, 2020, our lives changed and changed forever. Not only our industrial life or work life, our personal lives also changed. We never would have imagined, because there is no historical precedence to what happened on that fateful day. That was the day the Prime Minister of the country came on TV and told you that he's closing down the country. You would have, I would have, I have many, perhaps I am much older than most of you there listening to me. I have never seen someone telling me that, you know, I'm going to close down my country. I've heard companies, in fact, I have myself said I'm closing down the company. My company I have closed down multiple number of times because we had labor issues and productivity issues and the kind. I have done that, but never would have I imagined that a country would be locked down. That happened. Now, without sounding even a little bit of, inclination, political inclination, let me look at the situation a little objectively. The next point of a decisive leadership in action The Prime Minister took the action, and then all of us are in this situation because of that action. Let us keep our political affiliations aside. Look at whatever was done by Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister, and look at it a little objectively. Forget about the political part of it. You may belong to the ruling party, opposition party. You may have your own opinions on everything under the sun. Let's only look at this point. If someone has to take a decision to lock down a company, because this is important for the afterlife, that is why I am taking this point first. If he has to take a drastic action like this, he has to have, one, the normal things like confidence and the conviction. And beyond that, there is an element of, one has to be a gambler or a visionary or an idiot. No other person could have even thought of doing an action of closing down a country. It's difficult even for me to, even now, to say closing down a country. Now one has to understand as to why this has happened. Then only you will have the kind of resolve when you look at the consequences in the afterlife. Now, 400 million people. Okay. Now let's before I go to that, let's tell you one small thing. There are leaders and leaders, because this coronavirus issue is not peculiar only to India. There are those who are fighting in other parts of the world also, and there are leaders, the leaders who are visible. You take the American leadership. Donald Trump, he said that coronavirus is a hoax. It's something which has been cooked up by the opposition. And then he lost not less than 5 weeks after the Chinese, the so-called Chinese virus came on the scene. Boris Johnson of Britain, he said this is everybody will acquire herd immunity. That means everyone will, most of the people will get immunity, and some small number of people will die. And halfway through, he lost his nerve, and then he said, no, I perhaps made a mistake. And by the time he was also struck down by the virus. There was the Brazilian, I can't pronounce his name also, Brazilian leader, who is another person. Because of him, so many people died in Brazil, even dying even today. So the action of the Prime Minister in the context in which it happened is important and decisive. Why is it important? India because India is a poor country, it does not have the wherewithal to treat every one of us. 400 million people would have been infected. 40 million of them would would have been severe. 10 million would have wanted to get into an ICU care. And how many ICU beds you have in the country is 1 lakh. What would you do under the circumstances? You bring them home and treat them, or don't allow anyone to come inside, so that we treat ourselves with whatever action we can take, when taking into account how the virus spreads. But that's no easy decision. I can tell you this much. As if, okay, they're never comparable with nobody's action. No, even corporate leader in India or anywhere in the world can say that, okay, I have seen these kind of actions. This is how it is to be done. You can always say that post facto. We have also had leaders. Under these circumstances, there is only one thing. You know, Narasimha Rao used to say, his famous saying was, not taking action was also a decision, because that is the most convenient decision. Now, this decision has been taken by the Prime Minister of the country. There is a solid reason. So the consequences that follow, now it's going to follow. And then what you're going to face in the after life is something which you have to take it as an inevitability, and then can't be latched on to an individual, because at least that individual took the decision, put all his political capital behind it. And I'm not a political activist. I have no political inclination, though I have certain basic political philosophies. So let's not mix up politics with an executive action, because it is important when you look at the afterlife. And now one more point which I want you to keep in mind whenever you look at the future and whatever we are doing in the future, is that, you know, we are just in the midst of a slowdown. In one way, all of us perhaps have forgotten that there was a slowdown, and the finance minister today is in a way, lucky that, you know, this virus episode happened when she was down and out. Not that, you know, that is a kind of a situation we wanted, but that is a fact of life. Now, the slowdown, all this is happening in the back of a slowdown, will have a far-reaching consequences in our afterlife. Now let us look at what we are going to see when we go back to our workplaces. The afterlife, the Chinese miracle economy will become a pariah. You know what a pariah is? An outcast. Nobody wants them. Today, just as we are talking, today the German Chancellor has sent a notice. I saw it, some news item, for $130 billion as first tranche of compensation from the Chinese. Donald Trump, who is looking for a fall guy for his own mistakes, has found that the China is an easy target. Okay, justifiably so, maybe, I don't know. And I really don't know what kind of I don't go by the conspiracy theory, but I don't know what kind of a role China had played. But one thing is certain, they suppressed information. Fine. But then from them, one thing to their credit, I would say that, you know, we are used to contagion through air and water, and now they said, you know, it is through contact. So I think probably that's the only silver lining we had from the Chinese lesson. China will become a pariah, second most important economy. That is a big thing in the new world. That means a lot of opportunities are going to get opened. Now, the second is on what we are going to see tomorrow is something you and I are in the same boat. The world is gasping for capital infusion, but there is no money. There is a lot of liquidity being pumped in here, there. But then when you look at your own situation, you find that, you know, this money is not available for you to restart your business. Many of us are in that kind of a situation. The banks are open, but the bank safe is not open. Whatever be the announcements made by the RBI governor, ultimately when it comes to distribution of money, we are going to have a problem. And why is that problem happening? Because we have had a kind of not an honest way of, I mean, let me put it, with some emphasis, that honest way of doing business, that, many times our asset values are overstated, our capital, profitability projections are overstated, our liabilities are understated, because all for getting bank finance. And today, that is going to come back to haunt us. The capital infusion is going to be one. That is something which we will see in the new world. A sense of urgency to address inequalities of the society. This was something which was waiting to happen. The very sight of the migrants running away from the urban to rural areas, even when they knew that it's not safe for them to travel, they had taken the decision, because their justification is that either I will die of the virus or die of hunger. I have nothing to lose, everything to gain if I survive. So that kind of an inequalities, and one of the most distressing images in my mind when I saw the TV footages of some MLA in Bellary distributing food packets, and the number of poor people in the queue. Forget about social distancing. The kind of the food fallen on the ground, and then they want to take it out from there and to eat. I mean, so much of inequality no society can tolerate. I mean, I am old enough to say this, that this is something which will continue to haunt our society particularly. And this is not only for us. You look at it, the number of the kind of people who are dying through coronavirus in the US is most of them are black Americans. Why? 40%, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not too sure about it. 40% of those people who have died out of this virus are black Americans. Why should it be? Inequalities in the society is something which will not be tolerated by society in general and our own collective conscience in general. That's what you will see in the new world. International business will be loath to put all eggs in the basket. This is, I'm certain about it. The good old international theory of theory of trade says that all production should take place in places where those they are very easy to manufacture, or they have a certain advantages and benefit in manufacturing, so that you produce a larger quantity and it can be distributed. So each one will have their own. Switzerland may have cheese. France may have wine. All those things based on certain advantages, natural or otherwise. This is no longer the case. Natural advantages may continue, but the cost advantage may take the back seat. I am not sure, or rather I am sure that no multinational company, no global company from tomorrow will keep their entire production, starting from Apple, in China. That's one risk no chief executive of any company will be willing to take. This provides an opportunity, but that's a new world. No, China will not have a monopoly in production. Matters of health and safety would become a priority. I don't have to say this, because it's something which is it is too obvious, and to that extent, the industries associated with this will have a bigger say in the budgetary process in any country, including India, and particularly India, perhaps. Value for money products will be in demand. Forget about luxury. We have seen perhaps death at close quarters. Value for money would be the new mantra. As long as you are able to get uh, items, at least for some time to come, that will be your mental state. Whether you are an industry, whether you are a consumer, whether you are well, whomsoever you are, this is one thing which is going to be a definitive change. Luxury may come much later. Digitization would pick up speed. Even this itself, maybe tomorrow, the similar kind of a video conferencing itself, we will do in a much better fashion. But not that I have any complaints with it, except for the fact that I have lost that human touch, that kind of an intimacy which I normally expect in a speech or interaction in a seminar. I don't get it. Okay, but things would definitely improve. Work from home, even if it does not replace office space. This is something, now we have tasted one advantage: saving in costs, better work-life balance, much more advantages. This is something which was waiting to happen, but we Indians have that kind of a tendency that we always want to work visibly. What does it mean, work visibly? When your boss goes home, he has to see you working. You can't go home before your boss, even if it is 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever it is. As long as your boss is there, you will be sitting there. See, we have that kind of a feudal attitude. This is going to change if you're going to work from home, and work from home would be much more acceptable. Today it was acceptable to the employees, but then the employers are by nature suspicious whether they will get the output they deserve. I think work from home will be a major change in the new world. And then the next one is self-explanatory. The kind of impetus that e-commerce business will get. Amazon. Now today nobody is going to talk about whether 100% FDI should be given, this, that, and those kind of a thing. This is going to be in my opinion, the new world. Now let us come to the sun. We know that we have already seen what is in store for us, and now look at it. What are we going to do? In the new life, afterlife, and you learn to. What is this anxiety neurosis? Today also, I majority of this, because if my guess is right, and if I guess that most of you are like me, the anxiety level is so high. One is what's going to happen to my business. How am I going to manage? And above all, the fragility of life itself has come before you, right and center and left. The fragility aspect of life is something which is going to be gnawing at the back of your mind. The anxiety neurosis will be there and will have to be dealt with, because you look at it, because if you are yourself, most of you must be there from the middle class and upper middle class kind of a background, whereas look at the kind of anxiety neurosis which will happen to the working class. More than anything else, this virus has exposed the selfish nature of our own human existence. Okay, that's for another day. Now, cash is king. Everybody says, whether it is Chandrasekhar of Tata or the Parekh of HDFC, any number of business leaders, they said to conserve cash. You've got to keep cash, for quite some time to come. I'll come to that this one a while later. So, cash is king. Cash was always king, but then we had somehow turned credit card to be the king. That's now we are going back to our original equation. Cash is king. Conserve cash. You, if you have to spend, spend wisely, because cash is required. It will be required in the new this one. That is something which you will have to keep in mind. Now comes the conduct an honest reality test of your situation. How overvalued is your business? Do you, your asset valuation is correct? Your projections are correct? At least real correct, and correct may not be the right word, but is it realistic? You conduct an honest reality test, and especially in this scenario, because extrapolating your figures based on past data may not give you the right kind of information. They conduct a reality test because everything is going to start from there, like a diagnosis by a doctor. You are your own doctor. This is one. Resist the temptation to withdraw excess capital from business. I do not know whether you like this particular point, but this must be stated. The reason is when there is a spelling mistake, I'm sorry for that. It is resist, the first word is resist. There is, I said the cash is king. I said there is an anxiety about our own existence. Our own existence. Huh? Yeah, I'm told that the presentation is not showing. I'm trying to get this one again coming up with the. One second. I hope it's coming up. Just check it. My apologies for this. Okay.
Sure.
Sure. Okay. My sincere apologies because there's some technical glitch. That's why the presentation was not showing. Okay. Now comes to the next point. Oh, no, I'll have to spend one more moment on that excess capital. Now today it's easy for you to think that, okay, I have put in a lot of money in the business and I really don't know what is going to happen tomorrow because of my anxiety and my instinct for self-preservation. I would try to take money out of my business and put it into in my personal business. Don't do it now because you will need it. In any case, business is a function of optimism. If you have no hope and you have no business. So resist the temptation to withdraw excess capital from your this one. If it is far in excess, it's fine. I'm not saying that this one, I'm not giving any formula. But basic formula is, basic thrust of my saying this is that if there is excess capital, it will come in handy today. Because excess leverage is bad in today's situation. Okay, now comes to the focus relevantly, because we always talk about efficiency. but we'll always end up taking shortcuts. No, it is. I was debating whether the focus should be in that point, focus relentlessly or focus ruthlessly on efficiencies in business. Right from uh, business associations to the way in which you conduct business, the way in which you have built up your fixed costs, you've got to take a hard look at, is this the way to do the business? Okay, when everything is hunky-dory, you could always say that, no, okay, I will, even if it is that it will get covered in these inefficiencies will be covered later. That is no longer true, and at least in the immediate future. Why am I saying this? It's the immediate future and the afterlife. See, even in the afterlife, the first couple of months, or maybe a year, or maybe a few years, depending on how the situation unravels, will decide whether you will survive even the afterlife. This is going to be critical for us. So you have to be ruthless in getting the efficiencies into the business. It may not be it may look a little easy to say this, but it's going to be a very difficult task to do it, because unemotionally to do this thing is going to be very difficult for you. And above all, now you will have to accept the fact that we are living in a new world. Whatever has worked for you yesterday may not, almost will not work for you tomorrow. As they say, what brought you here will not take you from here to your dream of making it big or even survival. That may sound a little pessimistic, but that is a fact of life. Okay. Now, what do we expect from the government? Because now the issue is, see, this is something which is unprecedented, not only unprecedented, it is impossible even to imagine it. 6 months back, if somebody had told you that your country would be locked down and your freedom will be taken away from you and you will be gasping for oxygen, you would contest that statement. But then, what would you do? You have now today the situation has arisen. You have only two G's. One G is God, and the second G is government. I'm not talking about the G's coming at the end of every name. That's for the politicians. We expect, because after all, we have a right to expect from the government, because these are all things beyond the control of normal human beings. Normally in the corporate world, don't expect others to do something. You do it yourself. Why do you expect the government to do this? Even the government servants will tell you, why do you expect us to do it? Because this is something I can genuinely say that it is beyond me. It's beyond my company. It's beyond my industry. The government has to step in. Now, please separate government from political parties. This government is government. Okay, now, in the afterlife, what's your recommendation or your expectation from the government? Prioritize health testing and contact tracing. Why is it important? I think I'll put that point a little later once again, is that it is in the society's slide, there is an outside chance that when we reopen, the virus attack will come back again. It will recur. If it recurs, government definitely can't help you, but God might. It will be that serious. So the prioritization and contact tracing is important. It will continue to be important till such time a vaccine is found. Unless and until a vaccine is found, we will always continue in a kind of a state of anxiety that whether we will get the virus again or not. I mean, virus at all. So this is something which is important. Health testing and contact tracing will continue to be important for the next maybe 6 months, maybe 12 months, by which time hopefully some vaccine or cure will come in our way. Put money in the hands of those who have no income. Now let us not grudge this. Economists are today saying that don't even try to target the transfer of money by only people who have Jan Dhan account. What about the rest? Hunger is the same for them, even for us also. Today we are spending our time discussing, analyzing in webinars. What about those people? So put the money in the hands of those with no income. It's a priority for the government and should be a priority for the government, and we should not be grudging that. Provide monetary policy support to the financial sector. This is the bloodline of our commercial existence. In this respect, RBI seems to have been proactive in whatever they have done so far, and obviously they are promising that much more will be done, and hopefully it gets done. This becomes important. Now liquidity is available, but then, as I said earlier, it's available with the bank. You will be invited to the bank, but you will not be invited into the safe room. That you've got to remember, where you will have to liquidity being pumped into the market doesn't mean that it is available for distribution. Okay. Provide monetary policy support to the financial sector. Offer fiscal stimulus to rebuild the nation. This is become extremely important and extremely difficult, because all governments, okay, except perhaps a couple of them in the Western world, we are all bankrupt already. It's going to be very difficult. We will all pay a very heavy price. Whatever I say, whether you give monetary policy support, put money in the hands of the poor, and give fiscal stimulus, all that comes at a cost, and there is no free lunch. There will be inflation will go up. The bank balance sheet, even today with all this announcement, have become weaker, because money you can only distribute what you have. This country, the one thing this country has most is poverty. Poverty nobody wants. Everybody will be willing to distribute poverty, but poverty nobody wants. But if money has to be distributed, somebody has to pay for it. So now the banks are carrying a huge amount of risk by themselves. Okay, being monitored by RBI is one part of it. Fine, that's it. But then we have got to remember that all these action when we taken, we should not forget that it is coming at a cost, and there is no free lunch. But then it gets justified today only on one account, and that is life is more important. As the cliche saying goes, "Jaan hai to jahan hai." So only because of that logic, this will be. Otherwise, in the normal course, 6 months back, 1 year back, if somebody has said that, would have been shot down by a gun by the economists. But today, you have no choice. because lives have to be saved. We will make money later, tomorrow, or day after. Quantitative easing. What is this quantitative easing? It may be the only way. When the 2008 slowdown happened, meltdown happened, the American economy was the worst hit. And at that point in time, they said, QE. I used to wonder, what is this QE is all about? Later I came to know the full form is quantitative easing. And then later I came to know that quantitative easing means printing money. So you ease the quantity of money into the system. This may be the only one. But then, today, even as per the IMF advisor, chief advisor of IMF, we still can borrow money from outside. We still have not reached the junk bond stage. Till such time we can borrow, but borrowing coming at a very high cost. And we found out recently that the kind of borrowing which the Kerala government did for their requirement was, I think it was about 10.8% or something like that. It was I think 10 point something. It's very high. Borrowing comes at a very high cost. As it goes on and on, it will become very cost. So the money will be printed. If that is the case, again, all of us will suffer. But then today, the basic thing is lives have to be saved. We look at policies to attract capital to the country. Liquidity is available in all the countries, but all the countries are going through a similar situation. And all the countries are finding it difficult to pump up their own economy. So who is going to come and put the money into our country? But then there is a light at the end of the tunnel. That's if our handling of this virus does does pass the muster, probably our market, including our capital market, will become more attractive, and the money, because there is money, the money will be looking for safe haven, and the money will be looking for places which are more profitable, and most of them profitable and safe. And if we handle our the virus issue properly, we will have the capitals coming in. Okay, we can keep our fingers crossed. Now, again, back to this. I don't know, before you come to a conclusion, let me also confirm that conclusion, is that I'm again and again coming to the poverty aspect, the migrant labor aspect. See, we can't close our eyes and expect the society to transform itself with so much of poverty. It is not only poverty, and coupled with inequality. What? The top 1% has what, 50% of the wealth of this country? How can you justify that? I'm not envious of an Ambani amassing wealth. Fine, he has earned it. It is his money. But then, somewhere something is not right. Even when the migrant labor are told that don't go and we will provide for it, they are not willing to listen to you, because there is a huge trust deficit. This is one. And second is migrant labor. You take, for example, one state I know fairly well, in fact, to Maharashtra and Kerala I know fairly well. Take out the migrant labor from this place, whatever is there, even without a virus, the state will come to a standstill. The economic activities of the state are run by the migrant labor. The kind of work which you and I don't want to do it, are being performed by them. We have to provide immediately sufficient incentives for them to come back. And that incentives also include giving a sense of confidence to them. This only a government can do. Of course, as industrialists, we should also be in a position to support and buttress this effort of the government. Now comes to industry. Now, I don't know how many of you would have got calls saying that, if you're a supplier to a large industry, you would have already got a call from the large industry. Please reduce your sales price. The cost has to be brought down. Fine. What do? You ask your material supplier, you reduce. Somewhere something will give in. The equations are now today, with the resources coming scarce, because of the scarcity of resources, there is going to be a clamor for whatever is available. So a huge rebalancing will have to take place. Ultimately, the fittest will survive. But then there will be an element of rebalancing which will be required among the stakeholders, whether it is a customer, supplier, even if I don't get dividends. I mean, I will feel upset if I made an investment in your company. If I'm a venture capitalist, I will get upset. That works. So it is going to be a major issue, rebalancing the equations. Long-term investment will be put on hold. I don't have to explain that. That's going to be a fact of life. Only some companies will be lucky to have an afterlife. I'm not too sure how many of us will, as industries I'm saying, not individuals, will see the afterlife. Many of our companies may not be there in the afterlife, and particularly in the background of a very tenuous kind of an existence we had because of the slowdown. People were losing jobs. You are not getting orders. The government did not know what to do. So under the circumstances, we were already in a difficult position. Now we have got into an impossible position from being a difficult position. Only some companies will be lucky to have an afterlife. Payment of wages during the lockdown period is a contentious issue. In fact, we are having a specific discussion on this very topic day after tomorrow. The government has my advice, you pay. Fine. Advisory is good. When it is a part of a month only is to be paid, it was fine. It is not only a question of, normally the situation happens in a industrial relations dispute, you find it, when the labor and the labor union or labor and management on the two different sides, there is always this strife, and nobody wants to pay, and then it is a question of who blinks first. But today, because only part of the wages were to be paid in, say, for March, most of us paid without making any big issue out of it. But now, for April, what will happen? And then if it goes beyond April, what will happen? There are a number of issues associated with it. And somebody has already gone to the court saying that, I don't have the money, what do I do? You can tell me to pay, and if I don't pay, you can put me in jail, but then that doesn't bring me money. So this is something which needs a detailed discussion. We're going to have the discussion day after tomorrow. Employee engagement initiative should be a priority. Now today, we have also made investments investment as industry representatives. We have also made investments in the emotional investments in the employee engagement activities, because yeah, I'll take up. There are some questions. I'll take up the questions in the end, with your permission. We will need to do a lot of work, because today an employee will understand your language, because you're not at the you're not on a confrontational path. Employee has, he wants his wages, but he knows that you are not in a position to give it. But there may be a minuscule, small portion of employers who would be, who may have money, who may be awash with money, surplus capital. Fine, it's fine. But then you have in our this one from our company or collective opinion, all that is that we have made a lot of, most of the people have made payment, and most of the people have also communicated. Now that exercise of communication will have to be kept alive as to why we have not been able to pay, and then what is the what do we do, and both of us are going to suffer. In my opinion, there are three stakeholders in this game, and one is the employer, one the employee, and the government. Everybody is going to sacrifice. And this this has to be conveyed to the employee convincingly, and you have to take them on board. Employee engagement activities will get the theory of employee engagement initiative are going to come out of the conference rooms into the shop floor. We will have to take them into confidence. We will have to give them the necessary, build necessary trust, because in fact, their anxieties will be much more than your anxiety. So this employment engagement initiative should be a top priority today and for a couple of months to come. Budget should get inevitably revised downwards. Whether I tell you or not, that's what you want to do. Except maybe some people who are lucky enough to have all the orders and all the necessary wherewithal to execute those orders. Now, this is something even the government doesn't like. Contract labor, because even if you look at the contract labor, when conceived, they was always there. But when taken notice of by the government, how do they do it? How did they do it? They said, it is always, it was what is called controlled by an act which is called the Contract Labor Abolition Act. Because the first point he said, the government doesn't want the contract labor at all. So with that standpoint, but they have never been able to, no government has been able to do this. The Contract Labor Abolition Act has continued, only tweaking the provisions here and there, thereby allowing people to have a contract labor. This will be the order of the day, whether you like it or not. Probably, okay, this again will be a subject matter of discussion for another day. I'm not dwelling too much on this, but then it's important. Okay, now this is what I said. Now the afterlife and the society. First it is you, then the industry, then the government, and the society in general. Help prevent a recurrence of the epidemics. Now, there have been instances by which social distancing, even this, come to think of it, the very phrase social distancing, we in India knows how to distance, social distancing. We must be the pioneers of that phrase till such time the virus came upon, because the very caste system itself is social distancing. Anyway, that aside, if in case if this recurrence happens, it will be a double whammy, because you have already sacrificed 40 days of lockdown, of your freedom and liberty and money and sacrifice of economy, production, everything. And still this epidemics comes back in full force. A second wave could be fatal for every aspect. So that we have a responsibility today. So that's why though it's this one on economic, I said that this is one of the first important things, because we don't have the capacity to treat ourselves. Now, remember that has become, now we have been told and we have seen that life is fragile, end of predictability, and a planned spontaneity. Now, nothing can be predictable. The only thing which can be predictable perhaps is this, that if you touch a coronavirus infected person, you will also get corona. That's the only predictability that you can think of. Planned spontaneity. Now life has become, the anxiety neurosis has become such that the spontaneity from us is going to go away. It may not be for a long time. The spontaneity normally you associate with the children. Children can't go to a park. You can't go for a walk. You can't sit with your friends and sit and gossip. All that. Even if you want to do it, you will now prefer to do it on telephone and talk to people rather than come close to him and discuss matters of interest mutually closer. This is another thing which you will see in the afterlife. Work will, I don't know how much you will agree with it. It is my take that work will cease to define a person. Today, if somebody asks you, who are you? What kind of a job you do is what you are. If I say that I'm a managing director of a company and you look at me differently, if I say that I'm a mason, you will look at me differently, because that has come to define us. But today, the one thing which has this virus has taught us is that work may not, excuse me, work may not be that critical to define a person. And in this country, in this context, I'll tell you one more. There's been this debate about who is truly secular in this country. Till the virus came, and then I saw the reaction. Virus is the only secular entity in this country, or particularly in this country, because we are more worried about that particular word, secular. The virus has killed Hindus, the virus has the Muslims, virus has killed the Christians, every community, every religion have been killed by the virus. And then, one more thing, we believe in God, we are a very religious nation, but the country runs without temples, mosques and churches. How many people have lost their lives in the name of temples, in the name of mosques, in the name of churches? And this country doesn't need it. I'm not this one. It's not. It is not within my purview to discuss this. But I'm only saying that let us. Everything has to have a context, and everything has to have a some kind of propriety associated with it. Right. Now, one thing which people normally don't talk about is the interruption in the education. The childhood is getting interrupted. That is one. That is one. But today, maybe for 1 year, maybe for 1.5 years, I don't know. The people who come out of the universities everywhere, and we are concerned with India, come out of the universities in India would be qualified but less literate. As it is, we have a problem with education in India. We only turn out, the universities only turn out unemployable candidates. But now, consciously, we want to promote that kind of situation. We will have to find an answer to this, but under the circumstances, this is one area we may not be able to find an answer. Interrupted education system is going to do a long-term damage. Because it is long-term, today nobody has taken much notice of this. Okay, now I'm coming to the final, I think it is the final stage, hopefully. Our national character also has to change with health and hygiene. I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm not a great fan of a foreigner or a white skin or something, but just for the sake of saying, someone comes in, say London or New York or something, and he sees the government billboards which says, "Don't spit." Now, during this time, the virus time, there are a number of boards which have come up, "Don't spit." Should someone tell you that you should not spit? If people stop spitting, okay, fine, from a health point of view, it's great. Our culture itself is going to change, because I associated that with our culture. Our national character also has to change. That's not because of spitting, I'm saying. That's one example I was alluding to. See, look, at no point in time we would have come so close to death. And I'm hoping that all of us will survive this. If life is so fragile, let us look at it more philosophically and try to be driven by a value system in the afterlife. When the industry reopens, when the economy reopens, let's try to be better and responsible citizens. That's why I put the word national character. It's time for our conversation turn to population explosion. I don't have to explain it, because you will be able to tell me how difficult, what kind of a situation we had seen and what we could be doing about it. Okay, it's high time inequalities of the society catch your attention. Again, there's a spelling mistake. Apologies for that. This I have already discussed, because it is something which I can't say I'm passionate about, but I feel quite disturbed about the kind of inequalities, probably because when you get older, these things matter to you more when you are younger and industry and employed and working. Okay, maybe yes, but then I do feel very strongly on this particular point, which that is one of the reasons why I've repeated that point again in the last slide. Now today, the one thing I don't like about the virus, this is called the coronavirus. The corona is also novel corona. The novel is one word which is associated to something which is new, which is desirable. I don't know whom thought of calling this corona as a novel corona. There is nothing novel about it. Be that it may. Now, corona will be associated with China, and then hydroxychloroquine will be associated with India. This has in my mind, this has a philosophical slant. You are China is associated with the disease, and India is associated with the cure. In fact, by the way, this malaria drug is perhaps one of the cheapest drugs in India, freely available, and even the even the pharmaceutical companies were not even producing to capacity because there was not so much of demand. But then a self-delusional American president decided to act doctor, and then he has promoted it. But then that will remain in the collective memory of the world. We will be associated with the solution or cure, and China will be associated with the problem and the disease. That's my philosophical takeaway from this. I think this is my, yeah. This is my last slide. Before I come to questions, I just want to tell you that today I have tried to cover the macro scene from in the context of the coronavirus episode, talking about the economic scenario, what you can expect, why should we do what we are expected to do, and the kind. And tomorrow we are going to get into the nitty-gritties, the nuts and bolts. In our at Bizsol, in our collective wisdom, we have come to the conclusion that the MSME sector is the one which is going to be affected the most. They will need some more specific answers to the problem which have arisen now. And Ashok Nawal, who is the founder of Bizsol, he is going to talk about our clients. For our clients, he's well known and for those who are not our clients, this is one session you wouldn't want to miss, because he is going to give you further solutions to how to deal with our problems associated with the lockdown. Okay, so this is tomorrow, same time, same place, that is your place. We'll see you then. And now we go to questions. Let me come to the questions. Okay, before I start I already have got a question yesterday itself from Vijay Prakash. His question is about the gig economy. What's a gig economy? Gig economy is those economy consisting of freelancers who partly do work for love and partly for money, and most of them don't like to be confined to the 9 to 5 official regime. So his question is, I'll read out the question. How and to what extent do you see shift to gig economy, the employee practices in the MSMEs, and if that be significant, how should both sides prepare for it? The question, of course, assumes that there would not be a complete restoration of status quo and in the status quo ante in the post-COVID scenario. Here, Prakash, I have got a slightly different take on this. I am distinguishing between the gig economy and the contract labor type of work, assignment type of work. The gig economy is slightly different. They already have got the problem on hand. The reason is not because the gig economy is not the best way to go forward. It is because they are easily dispensable. Now, today we are looking at survival, and during the days of survival, our priority is how to reduce the cost, and especially if the gig economy is not visible in the larger canvas. Now, I was just going through some of the statistics. I find that the gig economy participants are in a terrible shape. For example, a driver who normally offers his services to whomsoever he does. He could be an Ola driver or a Uber driver or a driver who offers his services to anyone. Now today his services have already been terminated or there are no opportunities. So my own feeling is that those who are there in the gig economy will take the hit first before the contract labor and before the confirmed employee. Okay, this is my take. Could be different, but then generally the trend seems to be so. But then, Prakash, at least thank you for sending me the question. And now the first question is, Indian government, center and 30 state governments taken decision for entire lockout. Is it right from the point of view of economy? See, it is in the normal course, if you want a theoretical answer, the answer is very obvious, no. But we are not in the normal course. These are all extraordinary circumstances where we are fighting for our life. Jaan hai to jaan. That is why I was saying, today everything has to be justified in the name of saving lives. There's no option. So the answer to the question is it correct? Technically, no. Is it right? Yes, because correct and right, the difference is right has a moral dimension. Correct is a clinical kind of a way of looking at it. I hope, Pooja, I have answered your question. Is afterlife will mark towards anarchy? Satish, it's a very pertinent question he is asking. Now today, if many of the state and central government are taking steps to slowly open up the economy, is only to preempt that kind of a situation. When death stares you in your face, that is the time you will be afraid of no one. And if you are not afraid of anyone, anarchy is a byproduct. It can happen if the economy doesn't come back to the normal state. Normal it may not be, but at least slightly normal, right? So this is a very pertinent question. You can't keep a person with a hungry stomach for too long. You can't hold on to him. Yes, it is a real danger, and that is why that I mean, to my best of judgment, this has been something which I mean, if I go by the kind of actions taken by the state governments and the central government, they are aware of this, right? Quantitative easing is inflationary in nature. How the balance between quantitative easing and inflation is to be maintained? You are absolutely right, Swaraj. I have no differences of opinion on this. My only answer is, your answer is correct, but my problem is genuine. I need food. You have got to reach food to me. I will fight for another day. I fight another day because I have to survive. Today, when I have to survive, what do I do? So quantitative easing is something which, though I may not support, but I will accept. as an inevitability. Okay, Swaraj, I hope I have answered your question, because these are all questions, tricky ones where you can't, if you ask me if I survive and the virus, and 1.5 years later, if you ask me, my answer will be exactly the opposite. I can assure you of that. You will see. Okay. Omkar, firstly, let me thank you for a lively guidance. I love two questions. I have two questions. I would companies be take R&D activities as the first area of reducing budget as a good retreat strategy? Yeah, R&D may not be the first one. The first one may be advertisement. Second one will be recruitment. And there are a hierarchy. But spending on R&D will take a backseat. The project cannot be abandoned. So my own, if I were to be still in the industry as a CEO, if this kind of a situation, I have always taken in the past, of course, I have always taken R&D to be the last priority for cutting. Though there will be some amount of pruning will be done, but R&D will suffer. There's no question about it, which I have mentioned in my presentation also. Then the second question is, inclination towards passive income may rise. Should there be a judicial control from government in order to ensure that people don't lose money as a reason for lured investment by chain marketing guys? Yes, of course, the answer is absolutely yes. And inclination towards passive income, I am possible, but I do feel that, if I don't know, your assumption is as good as mine. So Omkar, my only thing is, I read somewhere that, the human spirit has rebounds much more after these kind of calamities than in the normal times. So I do feel that, okay, passive income at some age level, it may be important, but okay, your guess is as good as mine. Okay. Vikram Vaidya from Rajashri, is there any guidelines given to banks to provide soft funding to MSMEs to manage shortfall in working capital with immediate effect with some subsidized interest? See, yes, there are, but then it is not just available for you for the asking. That's why I said the banks are open, the safe is not. Bank safe is still closed. Now we are having a session on finance and forex. I think but on 25th or so. If you 24th, go through that. We are scheduled this on that day. That day we will have a detailed discussions on this. So I am not taking this question beyond this point. So my answer is yes, but also with caveats. Rahul Nargude, can we have this presentation emailed to all? Of course, if you like it, it's my pleasure. I will ask my office to send it to you. But only problem with the presentation, I don't know whether you will be able to make out the details of this. If you can, I have absolutely, it is my pleasure, and I feel privileged to send it to you. My office will send it to you. Has India and other countries' economies goes 10 years back, or it will recover soon? It's a typical, I had labored over this particular question earlier, because when Mr. Modi talked about not doing that, drawing that Lakshman Rekha, you will go 21 years back. He said, no, you will go back 21 years. No, I was just thinking, if even with the success of the lockdown assured, how long back will we go? I don't know. But if you allow me to guess, Subhash, I will go on this the figure of about 6 to 8 years. Now, if you ask me, give me a justification, frankly, I can't give you, because I told you I'm an astrologer. And in this particular case, I don't have anything to go by from my past experience to validate any of these assumptions. But I get a hunch that we will go back, but may not be 10 years, 6 to 8 years, maybe six. I mean, that's about it. I'm not too sure. What is the scope for collaborations in Afterlife? Prashant Joshi. Prashant, it's like in the afterlife, I look our existence looking for some straws to clutch. Anything is good enough as long as I can keep myself afloat. And also remember, after all this learning, we are not going to become, we may become wiser now, but that wisdom is unlikely to continue ever after. I'll tell you why. In economics, they say, old tax is no tax. Why do they say that? So some kind of you get used to something, even if it is a bitter pill, and after that, you just, okay, ये तो है ही है, पुराना tax तो है ही, आगे क्या होने वाला है. So this is something you will also get used to it, and then you may start your old bad habits all over again. But collaborations, of course, if you're saying that, scope for collaboration, anything goes. Why wouldn't it? You're looking for survival. We are not, you don't have the luxury of choosing which mode will keep you afloat. Anita, what do you think, how long this lockdown will go? See, I am hoping that the lockdown go on up to 3rd May. And after that also, there will be some amount of restrictions will continue. And an enormous amount of inconvenience will also happen. And it is good that way. And more important than how long it will go, whether it will recur. As long as it does not come back, it doesn't come back. The virus again show the signs of its ferocity. We are home dry. We can put up with that inconvenience. So my expectation is that it will not go beyond the 3rd of May, for which the answer also is somebody had asked earlier about anarchy and the kind of this one. That is why the governments are also eager to open up. In fact, Donald Trump is opening up this one for his own election. That's another matter. Pooja, are we moving towards deflation in the near future? A recession is a certainty. India is the only, not only, sorry, among a few countries which will have a positive, which is likely to have a positive GDP growth of 1.8% or 1.9% max. That's about it, which is also not so great to talk about, because by that time the balance sheets of the states will be awash in red ink. So this is a theoretical discussion. There will be a recession around the corner. In fact, the previous speech, the Reserve Bank governor specifically said the world is moving towards a recession, and it was actually speaking, it had taken some baby steps towards recession even before the virus struck us. So my answer is recession, yes. I'm almost sure about it. That's the beauty of economics. You can. It is so abstract that you can say something and get away with it. What is your assessment? This is Hemant. Hi, Hemant. What is your assessment about changes in fortunes of Indian economy, especially when the government has not yet announced any major impetus in comparison to Japan and the US. See here, I want to say something, one observation which I want to make it was, again, don't attribute any political motives to any of my statements. We want to make it very clear in this highly surcharged political atmosphere in India, certain things, certain caveats, I'm forced to say it again and again. See, if you look backwards for the last 30 days or so, you see that there is a calibrated approach on the part of the ministry, the Reserve Bank of India, the SEBI, all the regulatory mechanisms are operating in a calibrated manner, so that, you know, one small knee-jerk reaction in one corner, another knee-jerk reaction in another corner is not happening. And from that point of view, if the government has not held back something, it must be for a reason. Now today, for example, I can tell you, the government has enough grains in the granary to feed poor people. But they are very, very careful about releasing it, because I am also, being an accountant, perhaps a little more conservative than others, that, you know, if the virus attack does not, recur again, we will need everything that we have to put out the problem. So that is why some more impetus will come, some more things will happen, but not, I don't think it will happen in piecemeal. That is, I don't know about this, about how the bureaucrats work, but in general, I have seen this, at least now, these days, particularly after that slowdown period, things are happening in packages from here, there, and all that. You know, everything, there is a larger canvas in which paintings are done. So I have Hemant, my answer is yes, impetus will be there, will keep coming. Look for it. There'll be no special impetus for religious. Okay, that's an aside. Anyway, there are some questions Shailaja has forwarded. Deccan Fine Chemical. Under the current situation, what would be the USD INR rate for the next 5 to 6 months? Where will it reach? I can't give an estimate on this, because my estimate will be a guesstimate. Please, I invite you to come for that session on Forex and Finance. We will give you a roadmap. Not that, you know, we are going to specifically say how much it is, but then, you know, we will be able to give you an intelligent answer on this. Please come back, and we invite you for that session on Finance and Forex. We'll give you an idea. When the rupee will rupee will strong, what could be the inflation rate? And yeah, all these, I think, let me not go ahead of my story. Industry will withstand post-COVID lockdown lifting. Okay, now those questions, except those first three questions will be addressed by Advait, and the fourth one I will take it. Which type of industry will withstand post-COVID lockdown? I don't know, but I know one thing. There are some of them will not be able to take it. Some of them will not. You may not find in the afterlife, and even if they are, they may not be hale and hearty. Some of them travel, tourism, hotel, retail, to some extent construction. These are industries which are going to have a tough time. But I'm not saying the industry is going to vanish. I'm going to industry, there's going to be a major shakedown, and there'll be a lot of people who are not able to withstand the pressure will vanish from the scene. That's the unfortunate part of it. Survival of the fittest. So these are all the areas, because the other this one, I'm not very sure which of the one withstand. See, I can more or less visualize that companies, the large-scale companies, most of them, particularly multinational, They know they have a major support system. Multinationals and conglomerates will survive, and there are those MSME units which are single source or a limited number of sources to those companies will automatically survive along with them. I don't think I have satisfactorily answered your question, but I am more or less certain about my answer about who will not survive. I mean, survive, who will not survive is not a right answer. Who will find it difficult, the survival difficult, but they will survive in the long term. Rohit, yeah, Rohit, the aviation industry is the one that is affected very critically, with a heavy impact on tourism and a lot of other factors. The cash flow is literally stopped. With such big global impact, how do you think these guys will resume? See, aviation industry will get a, I mean, I assume that you're talking with the aviation industry in India. Aviation industry, I assume, or more or less certain, that will get some amount of support and funding. And second is, as long as, since since Air India has not been sold off yet, this industry has got some legs to stand on. And I am more or less certain, Rohit, that this industry in India will get some amount of oxygen from the government. Germany is the lockdown in the world, including India, is harmful more to the service sectors, as most of the service sectors deal with people. Tourism, hotel industry, restaurants, amusement park, airline industry. Yes, it is true, but then their chances of revival also is equally, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, equally realistically a little faster than the goods industry, because it can ramp up their facilities without too much of extraordinary efforts. I'm not underestimating the kind of reasonable efforts which are required. So the answer is yes. Service industry gets a hit, but not all service industries may not get a hit, because service industry also have got units, or parts like consultancy services. Then people who there will be people, the freelance suppliers, the kind of thing, gig industry, what economy that Prakash was talking about. Probably there will be freelance, this one will be absorbed, because there will be a new kind of stream of people who will be coming forward, who will not be a permanent liability on the company. Company will keep them as long as their difficult days are over. So consultants, hopefully in our case, we will also survive. But I'm not. I'm serious about it. It's not a self-serving statement, but yes, but then there are parts of the service industry. See, for example, healthcare, it will do very well. It will do very well internationally. Is this opportunity for India to attract business and investment from other countries? If not China, then who? If not China, the other competition for us is Bangladesh and Vietnam. But we normally we hyphenate us with China, thinking that if China can't do it, India will do it. That may not be that has not happened that way, because we also have to change our ways of doing business, and the industry is slightly more organized, and then we are unfortunately, with all our good points, we are a highly disorganized society. So if we learn our lessons well, if wisdom prevails, if the fragility of life teaches us some lessons, We may be a much disciplined society from now on. If that happens, yes, those who leave China can as well come here. And I am certain that the government as well as the bureaucracy must be thinking over time as to what can be done to, to replace the red flag with a red carpet. India will roll out the red carpet. Puja. Exactly what we mean when we say we are going back 8 years or so, because frequently we are coming across various predictions about the same. That is why, Puja, that we astrologers are all the same. Because the advantages with astrology is nobody goes back to the astrologer and then validates whatever they have told in the past and hold them accountable, hold their foot to the fire, hold them accountable. That is why we are very, very happy about giving predictions like this, because I am an astrologer. But basically, why are you saying this 8 years or 21 years or 8 years, whatever? It is because of the fact that your growth momentum is going to halt. Supply chains are broken. People have run away. You have to go back to your drawing board to survive. When your priority is in survival, you will definitely see your growth taking a backstage. So it may happen 8 years. Some other astrologer must have said 6 years. Somebody Om was saying 10 years, but my guess, I am betting on 6. So come back and check with me after 6 years. I'll give you an answer. Purushottam, which sectors will flourish and which will go down? I have already answered this query as vaguely as possible, because after all, I am dealing with economics and astrology. But then I have already, on a serious note, I have already answered this question. Santosh, is there any specific industry, according to you, which will bite the dust post-corona, and which would be the industries which will bounce back strong? Please opine on the airline and hotel industry. I've already answered. All the industries will remain. Individual members in the industry some of them will go down, some of them will survive. It's all your luck and the way you conduct your business. Because luck plays a more important part than the way you conduct business. I've already answered that question, so I'm not going into further details. Where business depends on import, and import is not going to start in future, how to deal this case by industry. Now, and a thorough and exhaustive discussion on this very topic is scheduled in one of our webinars, which I think it's the 3rd or 4th one, where this point will be taken up and you will get an answer to this question. This, I am passing it on to them and you will get an answer to this. Sunil, government order to companies to pay salaries to their employees in this situation. Okay, but can government give a relaxation in income tax to those companies who are paying salaries to their employees? Yes, any solution is a good solution. You are asking a bankrupt government to give you concessions, but we are in a kind of the sense the government is in a kind of a bind. Only one good thing has happened in this bad environment for the government is that the oil bill for the government is substantially low. It is a huge saving as far as the government is concerned. May not be good news in terms of optimism for industrial growth, but the reduction in the oil bill will, to some extent, will supplement the government coffers, but whether they will give any income tax concessions, I don't know. Whether the concession can come some form or other, but if whatever the government will announce, if my guess is right, it will be more targeted than ad hoc kind of concessions. Santosh, thank you. I reciprocate. Bharat, thank you for the wonderful informative session. Okay, thank you so much for appreciating. Now, all that we expect is if you have got something out of it. My question is, as you mentioned, possible slowdown. Do you think that that hit to China and the way other nations are blaming will be an opportunity for India? It is a resounding yes. However, to expect automatically that those who are leaving China are going to come to you, it will be a hallucination. We'll have to work for it. You have to work to replace China. Yes, people will be happier to do business with us, no doubt about it. But then if China has got a problem of virus, we have got a problem of social disorder or social discipline. If we can address that, which I've answered once, we will be, this answer will hold good for this also. Hemant, post-COVID, do you foresee a surge in the healthcare sector as also substantial increase in budget for the same? Yes, yes, and yes. I know, having worked in the healthcare sector, I know not only that how important it is and how necessary it is. So my answer, Hemant, is yes. Ghanshyam Mede, hi Mede. Will deglobalization happen? Will manufacturing opportunities in India increase? Part of them I have already answered. Now deglobalization also I have touched upon in the presentation. Yes, people will not put all the eggs in one basket. People will not go to outsiders more often. If there is something which supply which is there which you can't do it here, then you will go to outsider. So basically, as it is a nationalistic, inward-looking society was developing, and Donald Trump himself is an example of that, a product of that. So now deglobalization, the process of deglobalization has already started. And this virus coming in now will make sure that that will take deep roots. We will start looking inwards more than outwards. It's going to be, that's my answer to your question. Santosh. Unless a corona vaccine arrives, I'm sure that going forward, even after the lockdown is lifted, people may be scared of moving out freely as before, and this will further affect the revival of the economy. Can you please share your thoughts on the same? I have already talked during that presentation. I completely agree with you. Unless and until you get that vaccine, you've got to be careful. It is going to be a problem. The social distancing will, from being a desired requirement, it will have to become a habit. Social distancing and other precautions that we have to take will continue, will have to continue. Otherwise, if the virus comes back, or rather it spreads again, we will be in a difficult place. That's my personal take on this. Though that is why the recovery is also late. You know, when we are talking about 8 years, 6 years, 10 years recovery, one part of it is that the economy in the afterlife is not going to come going to happen overnight. There is going to be a lag from our own end, lag from the society's requirement having to keep this virus at bay. Hemant, a lot being said that a lot of manufacturing will be shifted out of China, and India is being looked at in big way as possible destination. Is India geared up with the infrastructure facilities and business policies from the government? I have already answered this. I am a hopeless optimist, but I am not so optimistic when it comes to thinking that if they are leaving China, they are automatically come to India. That may not happen. There are other destinations as well. Now we have to make a conscious attempt, and then we expect that our policies change. As you are saying, the policies from the government has to change, and the facilities have to change. In a dilapidated infrastructure facilities, who would want to come? So this is you have yourself answered this query, Yaman. Gopal Kabra, does we see industry moving from China to India in a big way? I have answered this query. There's this one question which has repeated, and I have completed all the questions. And now I think it is already a little too late. Yeah, it is going to closer to 6 o'clock. But now I want to make one point here. If you have anything, if I have not answered any query, you can always tell me that I have not answered. You have our email ID with you. If you have anything to ask on any subject, any of these webinars, please email to us. I assure you, on behalf of all of us, all speakers, we will answer you positively within 24 hours. And yeah, webinar at bizsolindia.com. Please send it at webinar@bizsolindia.com. I assure you that we will come back to you with the answer. There may be questions, further questions. I'm afraid that I will have to close it here because it's already 6 o'clock. I have already gone beyond my allotted time. And you will get the answer to those who have the questions. Please email it to us. We will answer you. And with that, I would conclude the session. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening patiently for this session and for your active participation, even in a impersonal mode of communication. I'm looking, one last thing, I'm looking forward to your questions. Please keep the questions coming. All that you've got to do is to send an email. We will answer your questions to your satisfaction. Hemant, now I have to conclude, otherwise, somebody will throw me out. So I'm seeing a hand being raised. Thank you so much. On behalf of Bizsolindia, I express my appreciation. Thank you so much.